Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm so glad you're with us today. As you know, if you've read The Fun of Dying or other books about the afterlife, there is a tremendous amount of very good and entirely consistent information about death and the afterlife that's been developed in just southern England and the eastern United States over almost 200 years. For all I know, there could be many other sources in other languages too, and maybe we'll learn something about that today. But when the question is whether there is life after death, where it all happens, and what it's really like, there's so much amazing and consistent evidence just in English, and it comes from so many different times and places that it is statistically impossible for what we have learned from the evidence not to be true. I'm going to say that again in case you maybe weren't listening closely. There isn't even a need to believe anymore or to take any of this on faith. The evidence is in. It all fits together, and what it tells us is beyond wonderful. It doesn't matter that Christian authorities won't look at the evidence, and it certainly doesn't matter that mainstream scientists are stuck with being required to support the hopelessly outdated beliefs that matter is solid, consciousness is produced by your brain, and when you die, you're going to blink out like a light. None of that matters. All of that, by the way, is totally wrong. But none of that matters. All the evidence back for 200 years supports the certainty that your mind is eternal, and you can take that to the bank. There's so much really good evidence that what has long been needed was a great team to put it all together, and that dream team is our guests for today. Dr. Dennis Grega and Michele Szabo are joining us for the second time. Dennis is a research psychologist, and he's a software developer by background, but his passion is studying the non-physical realities and life after death. His partner in this work is Michele Szabo, who is a healer, creative director, writer, and teacher. And together, they founded AfterlifeData.com in 2009, AfterlifeLibrary.com in 2011, and Voices Across the Veil.com in 2014. They built Voices Across the Veil as the world's largest ongoing study of the afterlife. Wow. And they say that what especially excites them personally about their work is that knowing the afterlife exists provides meaning and purpose for people in their daily lives. Boy, isn't that the truth? Today we're going to catch up on all of their news, and they tell us there's quite a bit. Welcome, Michele and Dennis. I'm so glad you're with us today.
Thank you, Roberta. It's so great to be here.
It's really a pleasure. It's always so much fun talking to you. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed having you here, too, and I'm so glad you're doing this work. I want to emphasize to everyone listening that this has really been needed because when I was doing my studies, nobody had collected anything, and I was astonished when Craig Hogan, with whom Michele and Dennis work closely. Craig Hogan told me about them and how excited he was about their work, and I think you're going to be excited about it too by the end of this hour. So let's first talk a little bit about your histories, because not everybody probably has heard your previous interview on Seek Reality. So tell us a little bit about your past. What got you started on all this?
Well, for myself, I've been doing this probably my whole life. Since I was a youngster, I started getting involved in various esoteric writings. Even in the 60s, I was, reading Robert Monroe's book and a number of books. I had quite a library, actually, even during high school. So I've just continued on, and, even during my work life, just kept up with the reading, and finally, when we decided to put together what we knew and what was out there, it seemed to be the prime time to do that, which was 2009 when we launched Afterlife Data.
What about you, Michele? Have you been doing it for a long time too?
Well, probably I didn't come into contact with a whole lot of information the same way Dennis did. I kind of came at it more from, I was, going to congregational churches all my life and everything, and, kind of searching for, more meaning. and, of course, found yoga and meditation and things like that. So I kind of came at it from that angle a little bit more. And, explored a lot of different things, including, pagan beliefs and, druid beliefs and, all types of different, just kind of coming at my beliefs and, from different angles and trying to understand, what it all meant. And then when we started looking into all of the afterlife materials, everything kind of just came together, and I went, wow, have I been looking in the wrong places?
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of us had that feeling.
Yeah.
I'm older than the two of you, and I was doing this work when nobody had written or done pretty much anything, except at the early part of the 20th century, we did have some wonderful collectors of what was being said through deep trance mediums. That's where I got started, and, the very earliest channeled groups. So I guess I'm a little bit jealous that you had more to work with. But on the other hand, it's so wonderful that you've decided other people need to have an easier way of finding this information. And everyone, I'm going to put all their web addresses at the end of the materials for this podcast, because I want you to be able to easily go and check it out yourself. You don't have to do decades of work as other people before you have had to do, because these wonderful people have done so much work ahead of time. Now, you told me that you were working on stuff, and I've been looking at the notes you sent me, and I'm kind of blown away. What is cross-correspondence across communication modality study? What is that?
The idea behind cross-correspondences is to show evidence that there's coordination in the non-physical with things that happen in the physical. So, for example, we're basically expanding upon the research that was done in the early 1900s, between 1901 to 1931, by the Society for Psychical Research in Britain.
Wow, good.
In 1901, Frederick Myers, who had been a previous president of the society, passed away and started to communicate with a medium in India who received just these brief messages. But one of them also said to contact this medium in Boston and gave the exact address, and it turned out to be true. And then
wow.
And previous presidents, Henry Sedgwick and Edmund Gurney, also apparently formed a group in the afterlife, and these were all classical scholars. So what they started to do is pass brief messages that were basically nonsensical to the mediums receiving it. But the Society for Psychical Research started to put this together, and they actually made complete sentences or complete messages when they started putting this mosaic of information together. At the end of it, after 30-some years, it filled something like 24 volumes, 12,000 pages of information, and showed that, there's obviously there had to have been some intelligence, non-physical, because the mediums were not classical scholars, and the information that was coming through were bits and pieces of classical writings that, when you put them together, formed a message. And so this went on for 30-some years. It covered, I believe there's over 24 mediums that were involved. They were using automatic writing at that time. And so what they were able to basically demonstrate is that, there was intelligences that were in the non-physical that were formulating a plan to show the world here that information is being communicated not from within this world, but from somewhere else. And so what we've decided to do is to expand on that. We've during our Voices Across the Veil sessions, there's been a number of people that have either repeated the sessions or their family members have been in these sessions. And we've also noted that some of the same deceased were coming through. So what we decided to do is, and this is in conjunction with Craig Hogan, is that we decided to see whether we could take different communication modalities. And the modality in this case is mediumistic information on one end. And then we also got a channeler who was in contact with a more evolved entity or group of entities. And to see whether the information would come through that would be identical across subjects that were selected randomly from our group of Voices Across the Veil participants, who provided us 5 names of deceased people that they knew. And then we randomly selected a target from each of these people and wanted to see whether the target would come through across both medium and channeling communication modalities. And what we're finding out, and we're still analyzing the data, we're still transcribing the experimental sessions, which were held from January through April. And what's interesting is it seems like the other side has decided to modify our design. The targets, and this is again without having the sitters actually scoring the videos, but just based on our transcriptions and viewing the videos, is that not always the targets came through. However, in most cases, and this is comparing channeling versus mediumship, the same deceased people were coming through. And not only that, but they were also supplying different pieces of information that, as a whole, similar to what happened in the early 1900s, is that there are different pieces of information about that person's life coming through different mediums and through the channeler, that when you put it together, it was the same person coming through the different experimental sessions. That's just based on our perception right now, having viewed the videos and done the transcriptions. Obviously we still have to score it and do our statistical analysis, but it looks like, and I think the reason that the target didn't always come through is that, we did a random number generator to generate who the target was going to be. And as we already know, not everyone in the afterlife is capable of communicating with those on Earth. There's a learning process over there too for them to be able to come to Earth and be able to talk with us here.
Right. Right.
And so we think that some of the targets just weren't capable of doing that. So instead, the other side decided, we have the 5 names. We're going to pick one that can communicate, and that person's going to come through. And that seems to be what happened.
Gee, this is so amazing.
And what's really nice is that because different pieces of information are coming across different sessions with different mediums, rules out the possibility that the mediums were talking among themselves, and
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So
wow.
that same information wasn't coming through. It was different information, but the same person.
So this is fascinating. Talk about this program that Voices Across the Veil that we were using as the basis for this experiment. Tell us what that is.
Well, Voices Across the Veil started out in 2014 as just a simple research project which involved small group sessions online with mediums. And we figured, okay, this will be, a great thing to do and, compare notes and, see what kind of evidential information comes through and all of that. Well, then it started to grow and we said, okay, well, Voices Across the Veil doesn't need to just be small group sessions. And, we started to expand, and we now have something called direct personal communication, or DPC, which is another program that is done with individuals privately to see if they can make a communication themselves. So that is another whole research study that we're doing. And then, of course, the study that Dennis just spoke about is also part of Voices Across the Veil. So any of these types of communication research studies are all part of our Voices Across the Veil programs. Wow. And people can, participate in them. We tried to keep the costs as low as possible. The small group sessions, and it's a limit of 6 people per session. Those are just $40. The DPC private sessions, which are about an hour and a half, and as I said, they are just for, one individual. It's a one-on-one. And we actually have a summer special going on right now for $199 for those.
Wow.
So
that's great.
So, mm-hmm.
And what is the record of participation of the participants actually getting information, having their loved ones come through? Does that generally happen?
That's the beauty of the Voices Across the Veil program, in the sense that we limited to 6 people, so everyone gets a reading. Unlike large venues where that you're going to get a reading is very small, everyone gets a reading. And what's interesting too is that after the first 3 years of doing this, we had about an 85% recognition rate across all the sessions.
Wow, that's great.
It's up to 89% now.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, it'll never be 100% because some people just are not in shape psychologically, emotionally to communicate properly with the people who happen to be there and not in bodies at the time. So it would be unrealistic to assume it would be 100%, but almost 90% is huge.
Yeah,
that's huge. Good for you.
It really is, Roberta. And as a matter of fact, before we got on with you to do this interview, Dennis and I were talking about exactly this, that, a lot of time, it's great for people to be skeptical, and they should be.
Right.
And you should also always have a healthy dose of skepticism in, whatever you are looking at. However, there's also the other side of that, where you're so skeptical that, you're blocking things. So I think there's
absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah, there's a really important balance to be had there, where you're skeptical and you're saying, okay, let me do this with caution, and that's perfectly fine, and you should do that. But then when you start getting really evidential information coming at you, and you start to go, okay, well, I can't deny this anymore, then you have to start really saying, what's going on here, right?
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the worst when it comes to being a skeptic. I just don't believe for a minute that you can communicate by mind with dead people. I'm sorry, that's how I am. And I have only found a very few mediums who can actually bring through people to me, and yet they do a beautiful job of it. So I know it's real, Michele, but I still have trouble believing it. Isn't that stupid?
No, it's okay. It's why not? And listen, I hate to say it, but there are a lot of people out there that are playing psychic and playing medium, and
that's
they're just full of bunch of BS, and
right.
And that's really hard for people to discern what's real and what isn't. And that also is part of the reason that we started Voices Across the Veil, because people started coming to us as Afterlife Data and saying, where can I find a real medium? And we were like, well, we don't know. But then started to know.
Because I don't know anybody really who is extraordinary, and I would recommend only somebody extraordinary, and I don't know anybody who is. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm going to, I'll talk with you afterwards. I think I'm going to just suggest to people who click on that tab, that poor pathetic tab on my website, that they should go to you and or Sandra Champlain. She also is getting excellent results with some very good mediums that she supplies people. So the two of you and Sandra hopefully can take care of the people who ask me these questions. That's just occurred to me, and I'm going to do that. That's great.
Yeah, that'll be our pleasure.
You're very excited then about what's happening, and you're feeling this is all very promising work, right?
Oh, goodness, yes.
We're seeing people all around the world, which is, really nice, because we can then start comparing the information from, different parts of the world, and we're finding similarities. The afterlife is the afterlife. And,
that's right.
That's right. We're getting, we want to expand Voices Across the Veil and find multilingual mediums that, they actually have to have, English as one of their primary languages, but we want to be able to have people from, the Spanish-speaking countries. We continually get emails asking for,
Oh, yeah.
have, these done in Spanish. So, we're now going to start canvassing for more mediums on the mediumistic side. On the direct personal communication side, what's interesting is that, it looks like even people that come in with skepticism are having experiences. The issue, though, is that whether they should believe them or not. And that was one of the questions we were going to ask you in relation to how you discern whether a communication is coming from elsewhere or whether you're making it up within your head.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And for someone like me who is so skeptical, it's easier in a way because I just assume most of it is crap, even if it's a very well recommended medium. So when something, I'll tell you a few things that really made me know something was real. My mother had no eyebrows. She had no eyebrows. So every day she painted her eyebrows on. Now, nobody knew this outside the family. I'm sure maybe people could see it, but nobody knew it. She died in 2012. And in 2015 or 16, I had a reading with a medium. And the medium was giving me some bland things. And then she said, "Why does she keep pointing at her eyebrow?" Oh, she just said, "Now I don't have to paint them on." I defy anybody to tell me there's any way that could have happened if it hadn't been my mother talking.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe that that medium was terrific to this day. I don't know that she's still even in the work, but that was somebody who was in contact with my mother. If people get that kind of, nobody else could have known it. It's a little quirky thing. Oh, here's another thing. My grandmother's married name was Ostergaard. And she was trying to give us her married name. Now, I defy anybody to come up with a way to say Ostergaard if you're trying to do it with symbols. Well, she did something I didn't even recognize at the time. The medium said, "Oh, she doesn't have anything to say, but she's showing me an oyster. What does that mean?" I said, "I have no idea. I'm not sure she even saw an oyster. She was a farm wife." I realized afterwards she was trying to show me that as a symbol of Ostergaard. Why else would she show an oyster? Again, I'm sure that was real. So if I tell people, if you're going to a medium and they tell you, there's a male here to the left, probably that means your mother's side. I think it may be an uncle or it could be a cousin. And he says he really misses you. You know that's crap, right? I mean, somebody just came up with that out of their head. Right. But if it's my mother's message or my grandmother's message, you got to stop and think about that. Mm-hmm. There's no way that kind of a message could have come through. It is so specific. So the best mediums, I think, are evidential mediums that are able to coax the people that we love to come up with something so peculiar that we'll recognize it, but nobody else will. That's what I would tell people.
Yeah, and you've just confirmed for us exactly what we tell people as well. And these are the exact types of things that have happened during our Voices Across the Veil sessions, particularly in the small group sessions, which are mediumistic sessions. And some of the things that have come through, people, they can't close their mouth anymore. Their jaws are like sitting on the floor going, how could they possibly have known that? No way.
Yes, right. They can't, right. That's what's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I know that they're alive. I know they're trying to communicate with us and give us evidence. That's been proven. Mm-hmm. But the trick is to get that information to us in such a way that it's impossible to deny it. And it's very few mediums who can do that successfully. But you say it's been happening in your Voices Across the Veil sessions?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so exciting.
I still remember that pool incident. Remember, Michele?
Yes, I do.
What?
There was an uncle that came through and was giving a number of pieces of evidential information regarding the person's life and so forth and so on. And then all of a sudden, midway through, he just said, you got to check the pool. You got to go check the pool, and the medium's just saying whatever she's being told by him, right? And she of course asked, I mean, do you have a pool? Well, it turns out a half hour after the session, we got an email back from the participant who said that at that point in time, the side of the pool had collapsed.
Oh. So they can certainly see his backyard while they're talking to him. That's interesting. That's good to know.
Isn't that something?
Yes, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. This whole thing is joyous. I mean, when you said that that's what you love about this, that it makes people happy, that it makes them feel more confident they're going to survive their deaths, it is a wonderful area of work that you're in. Don't you feel that way? Don't you feel blessed that you can do it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it really is, Roberta. I mean, we've had people tell us, well, here, let me just read real quickly a couple of the testimonials, if I could. The nature of the one reading, and given the edge of grief and the transformation I am going through, it is truly life-changing.
Yeah. Oh,
these are from people who have, attended sessions. The readings were excellent. My own had many evidential statements. Listening to other participants' readings was uplifting and interesting. I immediately after the session, I asked my 16-year-old if she had written a poem or a song or letter to Grandma after she passed. She was a little taken aback because it was something she had done and never told anyone.
Oh,
that is
see
perfect
how beautiful.
Validation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, and this is the kind of feedback that we're getting constantly on the sessions. So, when you know that you have changed somebody's life like that, and all of a sudden they have a completely different outlook and they're going, wow, this is so much more than I thought it was.
Isn't that beautiful? Yes.
You can't get any better than that, Roberta.
No, that is so exciting. Oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. All right, I have another question for you because this is something else I'd never heard of. In April, you say, in the email I got ahead of time, we launched the Direct Personal Communication Program using Dr. Jane Bissler's Loving Hearts Connection technique. What's that about?
It's based on, it's something that Dr. Bissler has been doing for years. And she gave a presentation at one of the group gatherings, Wendy's Amit's group gatherings, and described the technique. And it came to my mind anyway that, gee, I wonder if we can adapt that online. It uses bilateral stimulation techniques. It's based on sound protocol used in the 80s for veterans that had PTSD syndrome, and it worked very well. But it was also discovered that sometimes there was connections being made to people that were, relatives that had been deceased. And Dr. Bissler has created her own technique. We adapted it to be able to use it online to see if we can actually see if people can make connections within a 90-minute time frame, and they have been. It's something that we just launched. It's direct personal communication. We're finding that even people that are coming in with an open mind but still very skeptical are also having connections. We did 18 test cases prior to launching the program, and 17 of the 18 were successful. So now that we've launched it, everyone fills out pre and post session questionnaires so that we can find out what their experiences are. But we're also finding that people are having multiple experiences within the 90-minute sessions. And what's also interesting is that it seems to build each experience, builds on the one previous to that, to where at the end there's like a complete picture of a message that's being given to the person regarding maybe their own current life or something about the person that they wanted to communicate with and how they're doing. But it's been an interesting process. And one of the reasons I wanted to ask you that question regarding the distinguishing between something that, you think you're making up in your own mind, and whether it's coming from a different source, is that it seems that not everyone, obviously, if you're a skeptic, you come in there and you have this experience, you still may have doubt. Okay, but what seems to be one of the distinguishing aspects is that the information's coming through that they would not normally have associated with that person, or they can't relate to a previous experience that they had. So they're coming up with new information, and the question is, then they have to decide for themselves the source of that,
Yeah, and that's a very good question. Clearly, I had not thought about my mother's eyebrows in 5 or 6 years.
Right.
So it wasn't consciously and the whole notion of the oyster, I didn't realize till probably a day or two later suddenly what my grandmother was doing. So I didn't mentally sort of telegraph those to the medium for sure. They came out of nowhere, but they were just very evidential. So you're right. Even skeptical people can be convinced as long as they are reasonably willing to look at reality. And if something happened that there's no other way to explain, I think we got to say, okay, that's amazing. All right, now tell me more about Dr. Bissler's technique, though. Suppose I came in and I was doing the technique. What would be my experience? Are people talking in the mind of the person who's undergoing this process, or is this what is a session like, that 90 minutes? How does that work?
They go through the technique. They go through a bilateral stimulation using a metronome, basically to take their mind off of their own thinking and to allow themselves to open up. It's done in segments. Dr. Bissler works out kind of the count, gets them in a very relaxed state, and then starts to speed up the process, where they start experiencing, it could be anything from colors to environments that they're not familiar with, to actual communication with loved ones that they wish to speak with. And what we've been finding is that the information has been, like I said, it builds. It may start the first segment, the first experience may be very kind of light and not quite interpretable by the person, and then she takes them through the process again, and then some other pieces of information come through, or another type of experience. By the end of it, and sometimes, like I said, they can have up to, at least it seems, up to 4 experiences within this 90-minute segment or time frame. It seems like there's a total message being given, and that there's something that is very particular to them, very specific, something that deals with their own life, something that gives them information, but they have to ultimately decide whether it's real or not. I mean, that's where the ingrained learning of not trusting, the thoughts that come in or the visions that you see in your mind, the imagination has been downplayed in this society for a long time. And it's the imagination that actually makes things happen.
Yes, isn't it? It's really interesting to me that more and more people are finding that to be true. I love having you just said it. Peter Wright is a regression therapist, and actually just a general therapist who uses hypnosis in very powerful ways. And I'd say probably more than anyone else who's ever been on Seek Reality, he's almost built his career around people who have called him, having heard about him on this program. And one of the things he has told me is, it's really all your imagination. It's true, it's real, but what we think of as imagination is much more solid and real and important and deeper and more of a way of communicating than we ever dreamed. Yeah. And that's very freeing, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's really the way that you actually make the contact. It's it's projecting your consciousness to areas that you've never gone to before, and that's how they make the connection with you. It's opening a channel. We use the term imagination, and it's almost too bad because of the way that it's been downplayed.
Yes. Yes, it's used as just as a mindless toy when in fact it's quite the opposite. It's very powerful. It's amazing. But we're learning in this short period of time. I feel it's so exciting to be part of this, I have to say, and hearing all the good work that you all are doing and Peter's doing and so many other people. So you still have sessions in September, right, that people could sign up for if they were interested in learning more about all of this?
Absolutely, yes. We have we have ongoing sessions all the time. We did extend the summer special for the direct personal communication sessions of $199 through September. So
That's great.
have, I believe right now we've got 4 openings in September. So
that's great. That's wonderful. So this is something which anyone who is just curious, what's great is you don't have to go anywhere. It's all from the comfort of your home, but anyone who's interested in exploring, this is a wonderful, wonderful way to do it. Now, you talked about some work in progress, and I have to hear about these things too. Channeling project. What is that all about? The explanation you gave in your email is exploration of non-physical reality by evolved non-physical entities. If you can get some evolved non-physical entities to do some exploration and tell you what they're seeing, wow, that would be wonderful.
That's actually the point. In terms of the Voices Across the Veil sessions, the people that come through are generally close still to the earth plane.
Yes.
When you pass, you still have the same beliefs, the same desires, the same understanding that you had when you were on Earth. So what we wish to do is to bring together a group of accomplished channelers that are in contact with entities that may or may not ever have incarnated on Earth, but can provide us with information about the non-physical realms to a greater degree than those that have recently passed from the Earth plane.
What a good idea! That's great. I can't wait to see what you learn from that.
Well, we're putting together question sets that will delve on specific subjects regarding the afterlife and regarding non-physical reality. And what we hope to do is to have at least 3 channelers where each will delve into the same subject matter and then allow us to compare the information coming from the different entities.
That's great.
Yeah. And so we'll, just provide even more information regarding what the non-physical is like, because, we're one small atom in the universe among many universes. So
yes, right. That's all right. We're important. We're very important, even though we are, you're right, a relative speck in a great ocean of reality and truth that we cannot even imagine. But still, we're an important one. I love that. That's great. When will we be doing that project?
Well, we wanted to get it going, over the course of this year, but with the correspondence study and with various, we launched the new Voices Across the Veil redesigned website, and we had to make some changes due to things that have happened to the website through outside sources that it actually delayed us a bit. So we're hoping that before the end of the year we can get the channeling program launched and get that going. We have one channeler right now.
Super. That's great. All right, I'm going to want to hear more about that next time. And the other thing you said you were about to work on was called the Soul Assistance Project, Exploration of the Drop-ins Phenomena. Explain the drop-ins phenomena.
Yes.
What is that?
Michelle, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me?
Yeah, no, that's okay. You can certainly add to it. But during our other sessions, our other Voices Across the Veil sessions, we've had these, people just kind of, appear in these sessions, and they're not recognizable, but clearly they, are looking to communicate and looking to, we don't know if they're looking to be helped or just want to be heard or what it is. So the thinking was that, let's start to really communicate with these people and find out, what it is that they need. And I use people in replacement of, souls, right?
Yeah, right. They just don't happen to have bodies at the moment. But
right.
They're people all the same.
So, it's great to be able to help people who are here, communicate with others who have crossed and to help them make communications. But how about those people that are not being heard from the other side?
Right.
What is going on with them? How can we help them? So that was part of the thinking with the Soul Assistance Program.
There's two aspects here, though. And it's, one, not only helping them based on what it is that they want, but we also want to get evidence for who they are and where they were on Earth and who they know so that we can validate that. They need to give us enough evidence so that we can make contact with those still here on Earth to validate their information. And so there's two parts of this. One is, if they're earthbound and they're looking for help, we want to give them help through this program. At the same time, we want to be able to validate they are who they say they are. And so they need to give us information that we can.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. This is wonderful, because every time you go at what really is a massive area of unknown information, every time you go at it to come up with a different way to pull truth out of it and show people the truth, the more you do that, the more certain you are to make it impossible for it not to be true. We already know it's impossible for it not to be true, but a lot of people are slow learners, and you can very much help people to finally get past their last doubts by continuing to do what you're doing. I love it. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for what you do.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Sure.
You're absolutely right, Roberta, that, there's just so much information out there. And that was, part of the impetus for us to even start what we started over 10 years ago. But, to be able to just, help people, give them that jump start and, get going and, starting to understand this and then see more and more evidence, because the more this is part of people's everyday lives and they start to really understand it and they're no longer fearful of death and what that means, it becomes a whole different life.
Yes, it is. You're right. It does change everything.
Yeah, it really does.
All right, these are the websites. Afterlifedata.com is the largest database of afterlife description and analysis on the internet. Afterlifelibrary.com is the largest library of afterlife books on the internet. VoicesAcrossTheVeil.com is their arm which is experimenting with, and actually you all can participate. Everyone who is interested can participate very inexpensively, get to talk to your own, probably your own loved ones, but also produce valuable data that is going to bring closer the day when everybody knows these glorious, glorious truths. I'm going to put all of these links in the materials so that you can, anytime you like, you can just go and get started. But if you just want to read for a while, there's more reading than you can imagine on this subject, just in those few places. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Is there anything you want people to know just briefly, because we're coming to the end of our time?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of things, Roberta. I'd like to just point out that afterlifedata.com is completely free. There's no payment wall. You just go there and, grab your tea or whatever it is that you're drinking that day and sit down and start reading. And it will take you some time to get through it, so don't expect it to be a one-shot deal.
But even better, the more information, the better. That's great. That's
Afterlife Library, of course, is, we've tried to collect books that we think are important books to be reading. We're trying to update that as much as possible. It's just, there's a lot on there right now. What do we have?
Right.
Almost 3,000 books, Dennis?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. So, and we know that there's a lot more that we have to get up there. So, and again, that is free to browse so that, again, there's, no paywall. Just go there and enjoy. Voices Across the Veil, of course, those are research sessions. We pay our mediums a small stipend for their time. We take a little bit of the money, from that, to help our time on the research. But really the cost is super, super low. So we're hoping to make it available to as many people as possible. And then, for people who are really interested in supporting this work on an ongoing basis, which we hope, we can interest people in this, we do have a Patreon page. So if you go to patreon.com/afterlife data, we have a lot of information up there that people can listen to and read through. And if they'd like to, they can be a monthly contributor to the work, which we would really appreciate because it really helps us continue to do the work.
We're going to have to get more money into this because I do think you're right. It's very important to be able to do all these things without having to be constrained by the cost of it, the financial situation. We are almost at the end of our time. Very quickly, anything, Dennis, that you want to say?
Oh, just that we're open to any kind of correspondence. I'm Dennis at afterlifedata.com. Michele is Michele at afterlifedata.com. We like to hear from whoever. If you have questions or you want to have a dialogue, write to us at any time. We respond very quickly, and we
try to.
Yeah, we try to.
I know it takes me a few days sometimes, but I get so many, and I'm so happy every time I see that someone else has honored me with a communication. That's really how it feels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I just think you folks are wonderful. About 6 months from now, we'll be doing this again, and I can't wait to hear what's new.
Great.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
And
you.
everyone, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm so glad you heard this. Isn't this been fun? Please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began and you never will end. And when you really get what that means, everything changes for the better. Next week, our guest will be Aaron McCormick. Aaron had what we would think of as a rather unpromising start in life. He was raised by a single mother on the south side of Chicago. He had almost no education, no advantages at all. You'd think he didn't have any hope, but quite the opposite was true. His business career took off when he was in his early 20s, and he earned millions as a very successful corporate enterprise software salesman. This is one smart guy. He even ended up with an MBA, despite the fact that he never earned an undergraduate degree. And he tells us his two big secrets are empathy and joy. Empathy and joy. You're going to love this young man. He wrote a book that is called Unbounded, Journey to Your Inner Within, and he's going to tell us how basically any of us, using his secrets, can make an amazing success of whatever we're trying to do in life. So please join us next week for some really inspiring conversation. And of course, this week it's been wonderful. We've been talking with Dennis Grega and Michele Szabo, who has been with us for the second time, but certainly not the last time. These two tireless afterlife researchers were found by, you didn't know you didn't exist, I guess, till he found you, but Dr. R. Craig Hogan kept talking to me about them, and finally I said, okay, I'm going to meet them. And I have to say, I am so bowled over by the fact that they're doing this work and doing it so beautifully. I love these folks. Think about this. We're going to have them back every 6 months, and every 6 months they're going to have something new and exciting to tell you about how they're coming closer and closer to make it impossible for you not to know that your life is eternal. What more wonderful thing could they do with their lives than that? As you know, my nonfiction books are, well, you know what they are, and they're all available on Amazon. They're available through bookstores if you order them. And all of the adult books are available also as audiobooks. I read the audiobooks. I love doing that. We're soon going to put out another one, and I get to do another audiobook. If you want to talk about anything at all, any of my books or anything, just please contact me through the green contact block on robertagrimes.com. I answer every email. Today I was answering some that were 3 days old, which is annoying to me. I try to make it every 2 days, but I always answer. Just make sure to give me your correct email address. It's been lovely to be with you today. But now we've come to the end of our time, so I have got to just say this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy, please make the most of this coming week in our one reality, knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all in the whole universe, you are infinitely loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.